review coming up in the next year. So you'll be hearing a lot about some of the different things that need to go on as far as HLC and keeping track of all of the ways that we present ourselves to the HLC committee and sharing there. So I'm going to move on through, and hopefully Dr. Clark will join us as we get things going. So we may swap things up, and I'll just move on to my piece and kind of share that. And then hopefully Dr. Clark will be there and she can share what she wants to on the HLC. But if not, we can continue on through and we'll bring her in later if she's able to join us. I know she's sitting in a board meeting right now, so I'm sure she's excited to get out of there whenever she can.
Hey, I can update you real quick on that. She just sent a text, and yes, she has a message that says she can't get connected as she is on the road leaving that board meeting. So just as you said, if she can get on later, I'm texting her that now. So
awesome, great. We'll bring her in whenever we get the time to, if it all works. So for those of you who haven't met yet, my name is Mark Billington. I'm the director of the Create Center, and we do a lot of the professional development for faculty, adjunct faculty, as well as for students. So we spent the day today preparing some of your students and getting them oriented to using some of those tools. But we have an exciting new team I wanted to introduce, and as well as some new resources. So we'll start with that. My new team now, I have 3 of us. Myself as the director of Create, for the Center for Research, Education, and Teaching Excellence, for those of you that aren't familiar with our acronyms and our alphabet soup. Joining us new, or recently new anyway, is Spencer Vaught. And Spencer is part of the Educational Innovation Design part of our Create team. Spencer, if you want to say a few words, that'd be great. Thanks for joining.
All right, yeah. So I come from the world of education, and so I was brought in to really help in any way that I can in the classroom with, the design of lessons or curriculum mapping, or if you have a muddy point that you find your students struggling with, maybe helping with thoughts or ideas of how to represent that, or different ways we can present that message so that your students can look at it from another angle. So that's really a little bit about myself and background.
Great, awesome. And also on my team now is Sonia Maddox. Sonia is part of the instructional design team as well, and really is focused on the Brightspace side as well as our student experiences. So Sonia, if you can kind of talk a little bit about your background and where you come from.
Okay, my name is probably very familiar if you've been around for a while. I've seen some names like Kevin that's been around for a while. I used to work in the library. I now work as part of the Create team. Primarily, I'm going to be helping with Brightspace, but I've seen a gap that we're kind of trying to fill with getting students up to speed with what they can do in Brightspace and just really maximizing Brightspace on their end. So I'm here to help you with your course and how it's functioning and any troubleshooting that you need, but also to make sure that the students are getting the most out of their Brightspace experience as well.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Spencer and Sonia. All right. As we start to ramp up this new team, we're actually going to have a number of new resources that you'll have access to as well. Lunch and Learn trainings each month. We have those currently, but they really look at a lot of different topics that may be relevant to what you're looking for. So we want to make sure you're invited to those. I realize that the timing of those, since Lunch and Learn probably fits in the middle of your day and probably doesn't necessarily fit your schedule, but we want you to know that they're recorded, so that you can now access those through our new YouTube channel. And we'll be sharing out that channel, so you have access to that along with some links and ways to find that material. But a great way for you to be able to join in and at least look at some of the new resources and tools that are out there. So that's one side, and that's really us presenting that content to you, or one of our faculty members or other third-party resources that really present to you in a Lunch and Learn. Another one that we think is really important, though, is you getting a chance to talk. So many times you get caught in your home, online courses, different kinds of things, and you don't really get a chance to interact with other instructors. And so we created something called a creative conversation. So if you think of that as a book club meets a pedagogical skills, meets teaching strategies, meets all of those different things, that's what really a creative conversation. So rather than us telling you, this is your chance to interact with your peers, talk with them, feel like you get out of that quote classroom and get a chance to at least discuss the strategies and tools that you're using as well as what your peers are using. If you can make those, that would be fantastic, but we're also recording those, so there'll be a huge library of those resources, really talking about the topics that we'll talk about tonight as well. And then where do I find all of that fun stuff? So how do I find all of those resources? The last piece we'll talk about is our survival guide that's growing each day. So we will be sending out a PDF file of the survival guide. So you'll be able to open that in any of the tools that you have, Mac, PC, iPad, whatever, anything should be able to open that PDF. So you'll be able to open that, find it, find the resources you need. My goal with that really was kind of based on my frustration. When I joined a few years ago, everybody threw all kinds of links at me and all kinds of places, and I need to go to My Methodist and to Brightspace and to all these different places, and I could never find anything. And so I started collecting all of those resources and said, boy, wouldn't it be nice if I had a storage place for that for myself? And as I put that together, I realized that's not really valuable for me as much as it is everyone else as well. So I will be sharing that survival guide through your deans shortly, and you'll see lots of links to both that creative conversation as well as lunch and learns, but through Brightspace training, through all kinds of different frameworks and tools. We'll be talking about a lot of topics tonight that maybe aren't as familiar. So this is your chance to use that survival guide and find all of those different resources all in one place. I think of it as that mall kiosk. I walked in the door of the mall and I have no idea what stores are there and what resources are there. I have no idea what questions to ask. So this is a great place to be able to find all of those things maybe I didn't even know I was looking for or missing. So that's a few of the Create resources between my team. I have a full-fledged team now, and the Create resources, we're ready to go. All right, with that, we're going to continue on. Take a look at that survival guide really quickly here. So that's the new cover for the 23-24 edition. You get a chance to see a little bit of what's out there. So Sonia's been doing a great job of putting together all of the different Brightspace trainings. These are all links to videos. So you have access to the trainings and different pieces that are out there. None of these videos are over 5 minutes. So the idea is get you specifically to the exact content that you want, give you what you need, so that at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night when you're trying to put that grade together and you can't figure it out, you have a great resource that you can jump to and access that without hoping someone will answer their phone at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. Nobody ever's grading papers at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, I hope, right? None of us ever do. Not even with a glass of wine sitting there, right? All right. So without further ado, what we want to do is jump in and make this a little more active and a little more interactive. And you're hearing all the time, make it more engaging. Don't do long lectures. Don't do this. You've got to do that. There's an awful lot of buzzwords out there that people are facing right now. And so many times they get thrown out there as these buzzwords, but nobody really gets a chance to see what they're all about. So we're going to spend tonight actually engaging you with some of those different ideas of what could I do with my class to actually make it more engaging. If I'm not supposed to do a 4-hour lecture on Teams, what is it I'm supposed to do? How should I make that work? What are some of the tools that are available? So we'll be hitting that as well as hitting some of the different topics so you get a chance to talk about what those are. So as I said, Kimberly put together a great idea for us of a case study. So we're actually going to kick this off with a case study. And rather than just saying, okay, here's the paperwork you need to fill out, we're going to provide a case study and give you a chance to break out into groups and talk a little bit about what you might do with this case study. And then we have Sarah coming in to then talk about, okay, now that we've discussed what you think you might do, let's share a little bit of an idea of how she might approach this problem. So with that, without any further delay, let's go out to the case study here. And the case study is that a student missed 2 due dates and a synchronous session in the past 2 weeks. Their activity on Brightspace is significantly decreased. After the first missed assignment, the student emailed you to share that they were having a relationship issue and may need to move out of their current apartment. You haven't received any further information from the student as a participant, you haven't received any further information from the student as the participation dropped off. Now what? Does that sound like any issue that any of you have run into before in your classes? I'm guessing that you probably have heard something similar to that where life's gotten in the way at least once a semester. Is that correct? So what we're going to do now is go ahead and drop you into a separate breakout group. So we're going to use a Teams environment. And what I can actually do with this is I can jump in, we'll stop sharing for a second, and I can actually just choose rooms from Teams. And when I choose rooms, I can decide how many rooms we would like to have. Okay, and we have how many participants? About 20 people. So we're going to stay with about 4 rooms, I think. That'll give us 5 people in each room. All I have to do is click create rooms. It will create our rooms and distribute you in the rooms. And I can see that we have 4 or 5 participants in each one. We'll go ahead and choose open, and hopefully we get a good distribution of faculty, adjunct faculty and staff in each of the rooms. So we'll take a look at that when I hit open. We'll give you about 5 minutes to talk about what you're doing, and then we'll pull everybody back. All right. Everybody got a good handle on the case study? Your students dropping off, they're not participating, they're in a relationship with the challenge, life's getting in the way, so we're going to go ahead and choose open. See you in a few minutes. They get the 1 minute warning, so.
Coming back.
They already brought us back.
That was quick.
What's that, Seth?
They brought us back already.
Yeah, you're back. So welcome back. How was your first experience with the breakout groups? Did you get a chance to discuss a few things?
Yeah.
It's a really simple tool to use in Teams. And like I said, I can't show it here. We will be putting together a video once we make sure this all works and works well. I don't want to send you a video and have you trying to do a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily work for us. So I wanted to test it all here and make sure we could kind of play the game right. But breakout rooms seem to be working quite well. So great. With that, I want to take just a second and turn it over to Sarah Murphy to talk a little bit about what's the right answer for us. We all have our ways of doing that. But in this case, we do actually have a right answer. So Sarah, take it away.
Sure. That's a loaded response there, Mark. Is there a right answer? When working with humans, as most of us know,
there is no right answer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
as educators and healthcare folks, I wish it was as easy as here's the right answer, right?
Yeah.
But that's what makes our jobs fun. So thanks, Mark. I'm Sarah. For those of you who I haven't met, I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'm the Chief Student Officer and the Dean of Students at NMC. And so Mark asked me tonight to just come and lead a good conversation around student support and student success, which, as we just highlighted, can be a bit of a messy science. So I would love to just, before I share out some important resources, I would love if folks would add in the chat or even unmute if there's something that you feel comfortable doing or sharing in an unmuted way. What were the kinds of themes that came up in your breakout groups? What were the steps or the important resources that your group determined? I was put in a room and told those folks that I was going to log off and they were just going to lead my presentation because they did so well. So I'd love to hear, I'm sure all of the rest of the groups did just as well, identifying some ideas. So throw it in the chat, or if you have something that you'd like to share verbally, you can unmute and do that there as well. Awesome. My group is still coming in the chat. They're the best. Go room 2.
I thought Alice shared a good resource, and I can't remember the name of she just said it in the chat. There you go. Thanks, Alice.
The Maxience. We're going to talk about Maxience here in just a couple of minutes. Yes, that is a really important tool for all of you to use and know exists for sure. Okay, so we've got some themes in the chat of reaching out directly to the student, then to their advisor, working with the student to see what instructors can help them do and listen. Keeping communication lines open. So already we're seeing some themes in our chat around communication and that being a primary tool to support our students no matter what they're going through. So that gives me a really good jumping off point to kind of start talking about some important steps and resources. If there are themes that emerged in your group that aren't yet in the chat, throw them in there while I'm chatting and we'll come back to them for sure. But, really, I think if there was a right answer to this, you all have kind of hit the nail on the head already, which is connecting with the student to understand a little bit more about what might be going on and what feels realistic in terms of the next steps. And that's where there is not a right answer, because we really do hear a lot of different things from our students, and depending on what's happening and the severity and the pace and the speed of what's happening, there could be very different resources needed to support that student. I'm going to pre-apologize because I don't work from home very much anymore, and I forgot I should not keep my dog's water bowl right next to my desk. So if you hear slurping, it is my dog who wants to be known. Sorry. As soon as he started drinking, I was like, oh, I forgot about that. So a number of resources around communication. You all have those tools in your toolbox. It really is reaching out, connecting, what's going on. I loved how Melissa highlighted listening and really trying to understand all the pieces of the puzzle. I think then once we have those pieces, or at least the pieces that we feel like we need, I think the most important message I want you to hear from me tonight is that you're not alone in going the rest of the way. In fact, myself, my team, lots of the administration and other staff on this call, we're here to help you navigate different resources, whether that be academic resources, personal resources, or all the things in between. NMC, for those of you who have taught for NMC before, hopefully this is your experience. Our secret sauce, I believe, is the way that we do tailor our approach and wrap our arms around our students who are needing additional support, and figuring out how we can not just have kind of blanket band-aids to put on issues, but really understand how can we best support what this student is going through. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the resources on my team, and then we're going to talk about Maxient for sure, because that, again, especially as adjuncts, that is a tool that is very well designed for you all, because you don't have to worry about figuring out like, who is this person's advisor, or how do I get a hold of the right person to support this student in need. You can fill out an online form and it is automatically routed to the best spot for support for that student, or it'll go to somebody who knows where the best spot is. So I'll tell you more about that in a sec. I'm going to screen share here for just a second, Mark. I just have a real brief set of slides. It's like 3 slides, but anytime I can get in Canva and do pretty things, I'm sucked into it. I love some Canva. Canva, yes. So if you've never used Canva, this is not part of my presentation. It is the best program ever. You can build everything, presentations, flyers, all sorts of interactive things. I'm guessing I'm preaching to the choir here with Canva, but it's a pretty delightful program. Mark, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, perfect. Thanks. All right. So behind all of you as faculty members, there's lots of folks, but the folks I'm going to highlight tonight comprise my team, which are the Office of Student Engagement. So if you've taught at other institutions, we're often called Student Services, Student Affairs, Student Support Services. At NMC, we're called the Office of Student Engagement, or otherwise known as OSC. So OSC is a collection of teams, of departments, of folks who really ensure that our students are supported and have the tools that they need to succeed, primarily outside of the classroom. But sometimes, again, humans are messy. Sometimes that involves inside of the classroom support too. So the departments here in front of you outline the kinds of support that we offer students: academic advising, academic success, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. We do a lot of student events and engagement, making it fun and getting our students connected to campus and one another, which, by the way, is one of the most influential pieces of a student's overall success, is how connected they feel to campus, their peers, and the faculty and staff of that campus. There's 60-year-old research and everything in between from last year to 60 years ago that show that. And in addition, an anecdote I share with all of our students at Care Days at New Student Orientation is I tell an anecdote about how the Office of Student Engagement put out a survey a couple of springs ago to really try to understand what our students most value in terms of what OSC offers for services and what lent the best to their academic success. And the students showed us up because all of our awesome services were very well ranked, but what trumped them all were their classmates and their peers. Students identified that their classmates and peers were the #1 tool to their success at NMC. And based upon the nature of the programs that we have at NMC, that makes sense, right? When you're in a challenging healthcare course, sometimes you need the folks who are in the trenches, so to speak, with you to help you understand and get that context, to study with, to commiserate with, to celebrate with. So student engagement and belonging on our campus is something that we are always looking to prioritize, that we're looking to measure and understand. We also have a TRIO program, which is our SSS, Student Support Services program. This is an additional support program for students who are identified as first generation, experiencing financial need, and or have a disability, a differing ability. So those students get some extra support resources wrapped around them, and they're just an amazing team. We also have a campus health office and student counseling services. So we're going to talk about that in just a sec, because that is an absolutely essential tool that I want you as faculty to have a good working knowledge around, so that you can be referrers to students that might need additional support. And then we have a campus counselor who runs our spiritual development events and programs. And then the library. Again, most of you are probably somewhat familiar with working with a college library or working even with an NMC library. So I'm going to go backwards now and give a couple pieces of kind of insider info or NMC specific info. The first thing I'm going to focus on is advising. Academic advisors at NMC are really the front line. What we tell our students is that if you don't know where to go, and I tell the same thing with faculty to this group, if you don't know where to go, start with your advisor. They might not have the answers. They might not know exactly where to get you, but they will absolutely help you find the way. You will see as I talk a little bit about processes related to Maxient, we are intentionally building that advising team to be the primary connection point for our students. Our hope is that our students know who their advisor is, feels comfortable and supported by them. And so even if they haven't established a wide network yet of connections, that their advisor can serve as that. Another department that I want to give a quick kind of pro tip around is the academic success department. So we have 2 full-time folks who work with academic success, and they are what I would say probably the most integrated into the classroom, and are likely the most referred resources or resource by our faculty. So the academic success team helps students who need ADA accommodations. They offer workshops and or classroom visits. So shout out to any of you who might be interested in having someone come to one of your class sessions or to do something even asynchronous via your Brightspace. They can cover the gamut of topics around success, testing, test anxiety, how to take effective notes, how to manage your time, all sorts of things. And so students really enjoy sitting with either Lisa or Stacy, our 2 academic success folks. They also do one-on-one academic coaching. And so a student can come in and just say, I don't know why I'm sitting down the day after I take these set of notes or write them out on my iPad, and I feel really clear on them when I'm in class. And then 24 hours later, I look back at them and there's just pieces that don't make sense, or I feel like I've lost the understanding. They are experts in strategizing with students on how to take the best notes for them, how to understand how they learn. And so please be referrers to those services. Those are all free for students. They also run our tutoring and supplemental instruction programs for undergraduates through academic success. And then last but not least, I really want to highlight the student counseling services because, as many of you likely know, the need for mental health support and the need for counseling services on every college campus across the country is growing exponentially. It is not anticipated to slow at all. If anything, hit an even steeper and faster peak. And so we're really, really concerned, especially with our students going into really rigorous coursework and headed into really rigorous careers, right? That we want them to gain the skills that they need for coping, stress management. And so we do have free counseling in a couple of different ways on our campus. The first is in person, the old school way, right? So we've got Kathy Dworick, who is our Director of Counseling Services. And then we have this year, 2 UNO graduate level interns who are getting ready to graduate in May and need service hours or counseling hours as a part of their degree. So they've come to NMC and each work about 20 hours a week doing counseling services with our students. And so our students really enjoy the interns. Oftentimes it's a comfort spot for them because they are most of the time closer to our students' age. And so there's some good understanding there. And so we are really lucky to have about 80 hours per week of counseling services for our students. In addition to that, and potentially more applicable depending on which programs you're teaching for, we also have a free virtual counseling service. So it is called VCG, Virtual Care Group. All students have access to that. That tele or virtual, they can do it on the phone or using their iPad or a computer. That structure is also free. So students just have to go in and register. It takes about a minute. If your students have an iPad dispersed from the college, as some programs do, the VCG app is actually preloaded on the iPad, so it's even easier. But even if they don't have an iPad, they can access it from the web. They can download the app on their phone or their personal device. The really cool thing about VCG is that it is a 24/7 counseling service. So that's really helpful in times of crisis, but even more so for our students who maybe work and have full-time school schedule and have several kids at home, and maybe therapy doesn't work for them until 8 o'clock at night. The network of therapists is across the country, and so they are able to provide those services at the time that works for students. So that's really important. There's no limit to the number of sessions. And then in addition, there's also coaching. So they do kind of life coaching or wellness coaching on over 20 different topics. So say you're talking with a student and they say, yeah, I don't think I actually need therapy. Like, I'm really, really stressed and having a hard time with it, but like, I don't want to do therapy. Well, I'll be the first one to tell a student, I think everyone needs a therapist, but we get that, right? There's still some stigma, or maybe a student has other reasons why therapy doesn't work. They can absolutely click into that coaching, and maybe they just need some coaching around stress management or some tools to gain, right? That doesn't follow necessarily a therapeutic approach. So just please remember that and refer students to it. All new students, as they come through new student orientation, part of their step is to register for VCG and download it on their devices. So for new students, they will have that ready to go. For existing students, we've been advertising that since we started that service in January. So you might have a student say to you, I've never heard of that before. It is relatively new on our campus, so this is a great chance for you to kind of show your chops and say, well, here's how you do it. Here's how you get there. I am going to pause for a moment here before we move on to Maxient. Are there questions about the services or support that OSE offers? You can throw them in the chat or unmute, whatever you're comfortable with.
Sarah, I don't know if you saw the one question from Dean that asked about how is this relevant for our graduate students?
Great. Yep, I missed that. So thank you. So most of what I just referred is absolutely available for our graduate students, most of which are online students. And so a graduate student does have the opportunity in terms of counseling services and academic success to engage in those services virtually. So Stacy and Lisa, through Academic Success, their team's experts like we all are now, and do lots of coaching for online and on-campus students. They just prefer to do it via Teams, right? It's more convenient, or they have other things going on. Same thing with counseling services. And then VCG is obviously a very easy structure for students who might be in an online graduate program. One of the things that we don't offer as readily for graduate students would be the supplemental instruction and tutoring support, though I will say that we do have a specific support person for students needing writing support in their graduate program, which is something that, as most of us who have been through graduate school know, is necessary at times. So there is writing support for graduate students as well. In terms of academic advising, our graduate students might be some of the luckiest on campus. They have Katie Meintz as their academic advisor, who is just a beyond rock star extraordinaire. So in terms of having a pulse of the kind of that front line or the needed support from our graduate student population, Katie's got it. She's got it on lock. Yeah, awesome. Oh, Sean had Katie as a former student. She's a delight. You can take credit for that, Sean. So, all right. Any other questions about OSE support? And then I am going to talk for just a moment about the Maxient, which is just a funny word for online forms. I remember when I first started and everyone kept talking about Maxient. I'm like, that sounds really overwhelming and scary. And it is not. So hopefully you can see my screen okay. I do plan to share this PDF. I'll get it to Mark, and then he can share it out to this group. So Maxient, you're going to hear that name thrown around if you haven't already. Maxient is just a software program that allows us to create online forms or online requests, and then set how they're routed. And then we can create files within the program. It was actually a program developed for code of conduct cases, but at NMC, we've adapted it to use it for other reasons as well. I do use it for code of conduct, but we use it, as you'll see here in a second, for lots of other purposes. So Maxients are used, depending on the type of form, by faculty and sometimes staff, and oftentimes students, depending on what the form type is. And so this handout that you're looking at here is a list of all of the Maxients. So not all of these will necessarily be applicable to you as a faculty member. So I'm going to focus on just a couple of them. And the nice thing about this handout is that I've linked a couple of different things. So each of the types of forms, if you want to just get right to the form, I've hyperlinked to each of them, so you don't have to go searching for how to get there. And then lastly, in the right-hand column, many of our Maxients will, once submitted, follow a campus policy of some sort. And so when that is the case, I have linked to that policy. So if you're curious of like, well, what will happen when I submit this? If it's policy related, it will be linked here. So you can just kind of check that out. And again, I'll get this to Mark as soon as I hop off, and he can forward it out to all of the attendants. I'll also be sharing this for the deans and Create folks in the room. I've asked Amy to give this a shout out at Faculty Development Day, and then I'm also going to send it out all faculty. So if somehow it's missed to you, I will do like a welcome back big faculty email at some point in the next week, and this will be attached to that. So just as some heads up. So the two forms that I really want to highlight that our faculty use the most would be our SOS form. So it's the student concerns form that is called SOS. And really it's easy to think about because this is just like a SOS reach out. You're saying as the faculty member, like, help, something's going on with this student, or I've got a concern. And this will get routed directly to that student's academic advisor. So it also is, it's actually in its, to not go into too much laborious detail, the director of advising and myself are also included on all of those. And we want that to be the case. I'm not taking action on each of them, but I sure do want to see the pace of them coming in, or if there's some themes happening. So oftentimes faculty will ask, like, is someone watching the like bigger picture of SOSs to know if we've got a patterned issue? That would be me. So I read every Maxient that comes in, and sometimes I'm asked to step in on those, and I'm happy to do that. 9 times out of 10, that gets routed directly to that student's assigned advisor, and then they follow up within a couple of days, just to see what the student needs, and to sometimes triangulate with the faculty member. So again, it's hard to specify exactly what you would submit SOSs for. And so I'm going to list some like frequently submitted SOSs. And then if you are a returning adjunct, or the deans or the program directors, like all the folks in here who are in the know, throw in the chat of like, what would be some other reasons that you think SOSs would be applicable for, or that you've submitted an SOS form before. So oftentimes, this is, this would be a key answer to that case study that we're looking at and talking about. We would submit that if a student changes academic behavior very suddenly. So they all of a sudden start having attendance issues, or they miss a couple deadlines, or maybe they just miss one deadline, but then they tell you they've got something pretty major going on in their world, and you would love an additional person to just reach out and say, hey, what's going on? How can we help? Most of the SOSs we get do have an academic tie. So, this student isn't passing and is now, not turning in their work, or is also now having attendance issues. I would say that those would really summarize, as a recent former student during, yes, well, you didn't need to have Maxients when you were a student because you were a rock star. You didn't need it. So there was no reason to have a Maxient for Doreen. This just alerts the OSE team that this student is at risk, right? And we will work with you in partnership if you've got questions, or if we have questions. Yeah, Seth, I just saw your hand go up.
So a lot of times after the first exam, if a student does below like a 75 or so, I will refer them both to Lisa Flaherty, as well as put in a Maxient about them, just as a precautionary measure to make sure that they are saying, hey, this isn't high school anymore, or I'm coming back from 20 years of not being at school. This is a little bit harder than I expected, and just connects them with resources that they can then follow up with or not. It's up to them. It puts the ball in their court so they can make the choices that are best for them. That's great. Yes. And we get those quite often, just so you know, Seth, like, and if a faculty member ever submits, and we get these, again, it's pretty often that they'll write, just a brief notice, or for documentation right now only. That's still okay. That gives us, because oftentimes, say, Seth, you submit one that says, hey, the students got this one test that maybe they were slightly lower than we would want them to be. The beautiful thing is that might not be something that you're thinking, I need someone to work with this student like within the next 24 hours.
But say we get another Maxient within a couple of days from another faculty member they have on the same student. So it allows us to do some triangulation as well. Doreen, you got your hand up.
Yeah, what I meant with my comment is that as a student, I didn't know, like I see that there's a column here where it says usage and students. So when is that information presented as available to students? Because I just graduated, I don't remember ever being told, hey, you have that option to submit a form. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I thought, oh, well, I just wanted to give you a fun shout out. So there we go.
Well, thank you.
My answer still stands. We didn't need a Maxient for you ever. Really, Doreen, to answer your question, the types of forms that you see a student listed under, with the exception of compliments, concerns, and comments, those are related, when a student submits a form, those are related to very specific processes, typically an appeal. And so oftentimes it is their academic dean, their faculty, myself, or one of the advisors that tells the student about that form. Of course, they can find it on the website or within the policy, but oftentimes they are driven to that form from a support person that says, hey, you might want to consider doing a medical withdrawal. Here's the form to do that, and here's the link to that form.
Got it. Thank you.
Great question. Okay. So that is the SOS form. The second one that I want to highlight, because it will come up very soon, is our attendance tracker form. So for a variety of reasons, number one, the fact that it's a huge red flag for student success, and number two, for our Title IV federal funding, which we do not want to lose because it helps most of our students come to school at NMC. Both of those things require that we know if a student starts off the semester not meaningfully engaging in their academic coursework. So Title IV funding requires us to have some sort of meaningful engagement with students, especially online students, within the first couple of days of class. And so within the first week of every semester, or at least in the first couple of days of every semester, depending on the length of the time of the course, all faculty will receive an email from Neil Volker, who is the Director of Advising Services. And the email will say something along the lines of, if you have a student who is not engaging in your in-person or online educational experience, or who has missed the initial assignment for the course, please submit an attendance tracker form, and he would include the link. What that does is two things. It allows us to intervene and ensure that that student doesn't need to withdraw from the class. You'd be surprised at how many times we talk to students who say, oh yeah, I know that that's an online class, but I didn't realize that there was like a required synchronous thing on the Tuesday. I just thought I could look at it at any point in the first week. So this allows us to intervene from a success standpoint and say, ooh, you're already a couple days behind. Let's get you caught up right away and not let that go on any longer. But number two, sometimes those conversations turn into, yeah, I really thought I was going to be able to do this, but something has popped up and I'm not. And we can help the student untangle from your course, whether it's withdrawing or dropping, that has minimal impact on everyone. So you will get that email within the first week of the fall semester. And we really, really do ask that if you have a student who has not engaged in some way, that you submit that form. So those are the two big ones for faculty. Again, I'm going to share this what you're looking at here out with all faculty, and I'll get it to Mark here at the end of the day. Are there any wrap-up questions? I guess we haven't answered what is the right support for this student. What would I do? I'm going to give a 10-second synopsis of what I would do with this student. I think you all answered it, at least my awesome group did. I think first step first, understanding what's going on with the student and making an intentional, supportive, empathetic connection with them so that they know you're in their corner. Not that we have to just, kind of throw all of our classroom policies out the window, but it goes a million miles if a student knows where you stand, which is, I want you to be successful. I'm guessing you want the same. So can we figure this out? I think no matter what the student shares, it would be worthy of an SOS Maxient, a reach out to say, hey, the student's got this going on and I'm concerned. We've talked and here's what I understand. There are a lot of resources that we direct our students towards around financial security, housing, food security, We try our best to help with some transportation security, even though that's really difficult in Omaha. And so we have those resources at our fingertips and can really help students navigate some of those circumstances of, making sure that if they're having relationship issues, are you safe, right? Do you need to have a conversation with Kathy Dorick around safe relationship behaviors or to unpack what's going on? If you need new housing, under what circumstances? What are your options? Have you thought about that financially? What's your budget look like? So getting the student to us, we can really help facilitate some of those questions and then bring you in the loop as there's a plan that forms. That's what I think I would do. And that's exactly what you all said. So it's amazing.
Yay.
Awesome job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. Kinda.
Yeah. Absolutely. Talk to the students. Get that communication flowing. Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it all. You too.
All right. We're going to go ahead and share my screen again here. And get back to our presentation. All right. So there are actually a number of different causes for disengagement by students. And when you start seeing the ghosting activities and those kinds of things, first one we just talked about was really overwhelmed by life. And that's one we can't control, but we can certainly respond to and support the students in their needs there. The next three that we really want to talk about this evening really are more things that we can control and we can help guide and take some action on. So one of the first things that we see is an unwelcoming environment. The student, for some reason, doesn't feel like they fit in the course. They don't feel that connection that we need. So we'll take a look at that one. The class just is plain not engaging to them. What can we do to make it more engaging for them? And then the last one is maybe some inauthentic feedback, or you do a lot of copying and pasting. So those are things that are more under our control. So we wanted to kind of take a few minutes to address each of those. And what we'll do is a kind of a similar format. We're going to talk about some solutions that might be out there, some tools you might use, some ideas behind it, but then also give you a chance to chat about the strategies you're using. And then we'll circle back around and use some polling to kind of see where people might be going and what their thoughts are after having a chance to both talk with us, talk amongst yourselves, and then answer the poll. So that's a little bit of our format going forward. All right, so let's take a look at that whole bit of creating a welcoming environment. And there are really three key areas, and any one of these topics, we could probably talk for an hour or more. So we're going to have to scramble through these just a little bit, but we want to give you some resources and some ideas and strategies that might be available. So in creating a welcoming environment, we look at three different pieces. One is introduction videos, making that connection with the student right off the bat. How can we make them feel at home, give them some ideas and kind of go? Then two alphabet soup pieces, both DEI and UDL, and we'll talk about each of those three in a little more depth here as we move forward. So introduction videos, we worked pretty heavily with our faculty to put together some introduction videos. And as you're putting those together for your students, there are four key areas really to take a look at. One, as you're doing that introduction video, who are you and why do you care about this course? There's probably a reason you're teaching this course. And Dr. Alice Kinshu, I saw, was on there as well. She did a fantastic job of a video for us, really talking about what drew you into this strategy. Why are you in the class and why are you teaching it? Once you've kind of made that connection, what should the student already know? They should be coming in with some knowledge. And if they know they're behind, there's lots of resources that we can help to catch them up, that they at least know what they need to know coming into that class and maybe what the prerequisites are and what they should be ready for. Once they know what they're going to be learning, what will they learn in this course? These are the things that you can expect. This is a little bit of our course outcomes. These are the objectives we have. So they can really start to map exactly where you're going and understand why it is you're doing what you're doing. And then finally, the biggest why do I need to know this? So many times students said, well, I will never really use that. I'm still trying to find that time in my math class. Some of those advanced math and engineering classes that I took, I'm still looking at saying, I'm not quite sure where that math and all of that stuff fits, but I'm sure there'll be a day here before I retire. But it's important to know, why do they need to know it? So what's that next course they're going to take that maybe builds on that knowledge? Or how are you going to use that when you get out into your career? What are some important things that might help you to make those adjustments as you move into that career? So lots of pieces out there. So those 4 key pieces in an introduction video is great. You're going to hear over and over and over again tonight the importance of videos. We've really kind of transitioned from that text environment that we used to live into more of a video piece, and we have that ability to utilize and leverage videos to make people feel more connected. All right. The next 2 really are kind of hand in hand, and we've got a lot of research here in both DEI and UDL, and it gets to be a little bit challenging, and they both kind of overlap each other, but you'll hear diversity, equity, and inclusion. And really what that comes down to me, and I had one really open my mind a little bit the other day as I was talking with a student. Different students have different backgrounds. And so how do we address that? And that's where I think the DEI side is coming from. Both DEI and UDL kind of reach for the same thing. Students are different. You can't treat everybody exactly the same. But the way that DEI is coming into it is from the different backgrounds. And I was actually standing outside of an elevator, and the student asked me, I'm stressing about this assignment. I'm supposed to do an elevator pitch. And we don't think about some of those nice little simple things that we just throw out as expecting that everybody knows. And it was incredible to me how stressed she was about this elevator pitch. And so I jumped in quickly and said, well, follow me into the elevator, and we're actually going to do an elevator pitch. And so we took the chance to move from first floor to 3rd floor and did an elevator pitch on what elevator pitches were. And by the time we got done, she said, well, that's all it is? And I said, yes, it's about a 30 to 45 second pitch about what you're hoping to get by, because I met somebody out in front of the elevator. I've got the time for that elevator ride to talk to them, and I'm done. She said, oh my gosh, here I was stressed about all this. So sometimes it can be just that change in background that maybe students don't have, or a term that they're not familiar with. And it can cause an awful lot of stress for students. So that thinking about their backgrounds and where they're coming from is critical in this. And there's a lot of research out there. The other piece that I would really encourage you to do is either take part, if you can, in our creative conversations. We'll be doing a number of those throughout the semester. So it's a great chance for you to get on and chat with your peers. If you can't join in on those, please join in on the recordings and listen to the recordings, because there's some fantastic discussions that you get a chance to hear from your peers on exactly what those are. So that's a little quick spot on DEI. The next one is UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. And again, it's coming to the idea that our students each have their own different perspective and abilities. And the UDL side, in my mind, comes from the fact that students have different abilities. And it can be both special needs kinds of abilities, but it can also be different learning styles. So really, we're all different, and we all have different needs. But in the end, the more that we can design our courses around the idea that everybody's just a little bit different, and how do we hit those learning styles? How do we utilize and leverage all of those different things? And for me, the one that really stands out here, as I try to get my head around exactly where this is coming from, is curb cuts are really there to help those in wheelchairs. But so many times, those things that we redesign for a specific need help the rest of us as well. So while it might be helpful for or necessary for someone in a wheelchair, it's certainly very helpful when you're pushing a stroller as well. So lots of different things. I might be hauling equipment. I might be doing lots of things. So while it might be a necessity for some, it's a nicety, or certainly something to help with others. So when you think of universal design, really think of it as coming from that ability side. But both of these tools are really looking at making sure that we think about all of our students, not just that one student. So lots of different pieces out there. If you're looking for a book that I loved reading, Make It Stick is a fantastic piece. It really looks into the UDL side and thinking about a lot of different pieces. So if those of you that want a quick review of it, I have a couple copies of it. I'd be more than happy to share. But it is a fantastic book for really looking at UDL and those types of things. And one that really threw me was they actually are an advocate of thinking of using your weakest method for learning. So you might be very strong in hands-on, but you're not so good at the listening side. Well, maybe what you need to do is work on the listening side instead of leaning on that strength. Building up the weak side will make you work harder to gather that information. And it also, by working harder, makes it stick better. So hence the name Make It Stick. So I thought that was a pretty interesting approach to what they were looking at in that book. But those are the types of things we talk about in creative conversations. Okay, so with that in mind, we talked about 3 different things. We talked about the intro videos, we talked about DEI, and we also talked about UDL. I'm sure many of you have other strategies and tools, so we're going to take this opportunity right now to jump out and jump into a breakout session. So we will be hitting the rooms again. And here you've got about 5 minutes to go ahead and discuss the opportunities to make a more welcoming environment in your classroom.
Five minutes.
Are we running?
You're cutting us off. No, I'm just kidding.
That was a great story.
Okay, cool. I got it. Cool. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. So we'd like to give everybody a chance to chat and share a little bit, but rather than taking a ton of time to do that, we're going to use one other tool that we have available, which is polling. So we're actually going to go out and use the polling feature in Teams. And this will allow us to actually save different polls. And so we can already have preloaded questions ready to go. So we want to talk about what strategies did you come up with to create a welcoming environment in your class? So we're going to open that up as a word cloud poll and you'll get a chance to respond here. So let us know what you talked about. And you can provide multiple responses. None of this is recorded. We will record your responses, but not names tied to it. Then you can also click on responses. So if you see one that you said, oh yeah, I didn't think about that one and you want to vote for it, you can simply click on that and add your like to it. And that will, as you see, increase the size of some of those responses. So we can see what are the more important ones or the more called out ones anyway. So we're seeing responses roll in. You can see how handy this is to just pull up a quick response idea. Some other pieces that are available in polling on Teams while we're kind of walking through this, you can actually do an instant poll with a thumbs up, thumbs down, a heart or broken heart, check or lots of different instant responses. So you can verbally ask the question and then just send an instant poll and get a feel for where everybody is within your courses. Great. All right. With that, then, let's go ahead and continue on. We've got that recorded and ready to go. So we'll continue on and move on to the next set of slides with Spencer.
Hey, Mark, before we move on to that, I have prizes I need to give away.
Yep, exactly. You know what? Here, let me share my screen because I just saw that as well. So we're going to jump over here and share my screen, and you can continue that while it's there. But I have that screen coming up as well. So thank you.
All right, I'll do that while Spencer gets ready. He needs a little time. I can tell he needs to let his Chick-fil-A settle in a little bit before he gets ready to present. See, he's stretching, so, he's getting ready. All right, so here is your chance to win. We have our first trivia question for your chance to win some NMC gear. So if you will put your answer in the chat, and Dean is going to monitor who is the first person to put in the closest correct answer. So we took the census just here on Monday and took a head count here at the college. How many students are currently enrolled at NMC across all divisions and all programs? How many students are currently enrolled at NMC? Seth, come on, man. I'll tell you right now, you would be teaching a lot more lab classes. Your workload, you would be on overload, way more overload.
Da 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 dun 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 dun. Last chance, get it in there.
2,500.
All right, the answer is 1,071 is our current enrollment, and with 371 new students coming to all of you and all of us on Monday, August 14th. So who's the closest one, Dean?
Sean Steele, you are the closest at 1100. You have a choice of an NMC t-shirt, water bottle / mug, or a $10 Starbucks gift card. Which would you like? Let me know, and we'll send that to you.
He said t-shirt.
All right.
T-shirt.
Dang it. That's the one I wanted. All right, Spencer, you're up.
Oh, okay, sweet. So let's see. Okay, I gotta do this thing over here. Oh, okay. Hi everyone, how's it going? Good to see all of you. We are running out of time. And so what we are going to do is we're just going to scratch the surface of student engagement. Again, as Mark said earlier, this is one of those topics that we can spend hours on, and we are just going to kind of scratch the surface. And one of the first things that we're going to talk to you about is you know, making video discussion a requirement, okay? When we talk about that discussion and making it a video requirement, one of the ways that works for our students is it helps connect the students to each other, especially in those online environments, right? When we talk about those online environments, it's usually just a mystery who's on the other end of the keyboard, right? And so by forcing that video discussion and as a requirement, it doesn't have to be every single one, but you know, make maybe every other week or something along those lines. You might want to make a video requirement. But when we talk about this, it's really nice to be able to see who's in your classroom, like literally see them. It's great to get the video feedback from the professor then as they give their 2 cents as well. And it's just one of those things that instead of just typing, instead of just responding, oh, I've got to put two responses now, and this will definitely change the way your students perceive that piece of the assignment. Okay, and then another thing that you have probably seen, we've been using Teams, and using Teams is another way that your students can collaborate outside of the class. If you put them into groups, you can create little channels for each of the group members, and you can put them in teams that way, and then they can collaborate through teams because they're probably all going to be on fairly different schedules. And so being able to collaborate in a collaborative setting is going to be difficult for a lot of our students. And again, especially if you are in an online environment. You know, face-to-face classes, it's going to be easier, but again, not everyone's necessarily going to have the same schedule. So when we talk about Teams is a great place to, we can have video chats, we can take notes, we can chat with each other. There's all kinds of different things. We can share files with each other. And you've kind of seen us use that throughout the evening tonight. Again, Mark is going to, I believe, send out this presentation to everybody so that, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yep. So you'll be able to go through all these links and play all these videos and things like that. Another thing that we can do is make your content interactive, okay? So you're not necessarily creating the content in your courses, you're actually just presenting someone else's content and helping promote the critical thinking skills that your students are utilizing, as well as you know, really getting your students to complete those assignments and move forward. So what can we do? How can we make the content a little more interactive? So one of the ways we can do that, when we do presentations, we can look at Kahoot. Okay, what Kahoot is it's a way you can create interactive presentations, but it's also a way that you can do gamified formative assessments. Some of your students will like this, some will not like it as much. So when you do these, you know, especially with Kahoot, this is one that gets used a lot. So some students might eventually get a little frustrated if that's the only way you're doing formative assessments. But Kahoot is a really excellent way to do that. And again, you can click on the link right there if you would like to do that. Check that out later when you get this.
The other piece that we do have is we do have a Kahoot accounts for each of them. If they choose, all you have to do is ask.
Yes, that is correct. Did you guys all hear that? Awesome. Okay. Then we also have Nearpod. Nearpod is it's another way to do interactive presentations. Has a tiny bit of gamified assessment pieces, but it's a way you can incorporate questioning and things like that into your presentations, so that the students are forced to ask questions as they're watching. Edpuzzle, this is an excellent resource. Whether you're in an online environment or a face-to-face environment, you can take videos and turn them into interactive educational resources. This is one that I would really think you should take a look at, because basically what it allows you to do is take any video that's on YouTube and in a dozen other places, and then import your own questions into them and make them quizzes and formative assessments. Quizzes is similar to Kahoot, but it has different tools. It's gotten a lot of updates lately. Originally, Quizzes started out as a student-paced interactive content, whereas Kahoot was teacher-paced. Okay, so now Quizzes is done some really cool things, and it's another place that we can check out what it can do for your students. But again, similar to Kahoot. Flip, this is a different way to collect your video responses. When you go into your classroom and do classroom discussions, you can have, you hit the insert stuff button and you can do video responses that way. But Flip is a different way to collect video responses, and it makes it feel a little more like social media, which I know a lot of your students are into. Microsoft Whiteboard is amazing. It is an excellent collaborative space for your students, especially if you're on campus. Your students all have access to this, and I think actually even if you're not on campus, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if you're not on campus, I'm pretty sure your students have access to this Microsoft Whiteboard app.
Absolutely, yes, they do.
Yes, and so it's an excellent whiteboard space that your students can do all kinds of extraordinary things. I strongly encourage you to take a look at that when you get this email as well. And there's more, much more than we can really go through in the time that we have left. And so some things to ponder, okay? How can you make it engaging if you are not creating the content? And then how can you put your fingerprints on someone else's content? It really comes down to delivery and review. So for example, how you deliver the content to your students is one way to really put your own spin on the content. And then when you review the content, if you do a Kahoot or if you go through an Edpuzzle or a Quizzes, and just making it as engaging for your students as possible. So that is a quick down and dirty way to, as for some tools that you can use to incorporate into your classrooms and create some engaging content. So now we're going to go to a breakout session here in just a second. Let Mark drive again.
All right, great. And so talk about some of the tools, and then we'll come back and do a poll again very quickly so you can all see that as well. So our next question is, what active learning environments or tools are you using currently? Oh, excuse me, why am I sending the polls? I'm sorry. We actually want to go to a breakout. Sorry. What tools, to discuss what tools you're currently using or which ones you might like to use?
Cut off.
Again.
Cut off.
I was-
All right, Sonia.
Oh, where's my-
And the time is up.
And you.
All right, and we're going to go ahead and hit the, this, I think I actually have the second poll out there, so you can go ahead and respond to the poll. What active learning or engagement tools do you currently use?
Could you repeat the question, Mark?
What active learning or engagement tools do you currently use? But it should be up on the screen here, but I'm not seeing it there.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat, but it's not showing up.
Oh, you have to scroll back in your chat bar to find it.
I'm going to hopefully hit that, and it's still not going to pull it up. So yeah, take a look at your chat, and you can go ahead and I'm not seeing it here. So you what, just in interest of time on that one, it sounds like we got a lot of new ones out there for folks. So we'll be sharing that, and you'll have lots of resources of tools that you can use. Know that you have the full paid version of Kahoot. So just looking at the list, I think I have enough Kahoot licenses, so I'm just going to give it to all of the adjuncts that are on. We have enough licenses, we should be able to cover you. So very cool. Awesome work. All right. Dr. Meisinger, I think you're up on a quiz and question.
Sure.
Question and prizes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
fire away and I'll bring that screen up.
Okay. So my question to contribute to this is in October 2024, we are scheduled for a comprehensive visit from the Higher Learning Commission. So as part of that, we're currently collecting evidence, gathering stories from faculty and staff, and preparing to write our argument for reaffirmation for our accreditation. We are on an open pathway. So with that being said, how many criteria in the college are we evaluated on?
I don't know what they are.
67. Oh, that would be alarming.
Nothing left.
Sonia, there you go.
You can guess a number, anybody. Guess in the
Just
chat.
guess. There we go.
Da 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 dun dun dun. Last chance, and it's closed.
Close. Okay.
Kimberly.
So the final answer is 5. So I'm going to quickly kind of talk about the 5. So there's 5. Criterion 1 talks about the mission, and criteria talks about integrity with ethical and responsible conduct. Criterion 3 talks about teaching and learning. Criteria 4 talks about teaching, learning, evaluation, and improvement. And criterion 5 is really about institutional effectiveness, resources, and planning. So as part of this, you'll be getting emails and communication from your deans, program directors about next steps and best understanding how we prep for the site visit. So not sure who won. I'm a little scared of the 67, but.
Sophia Paz. Sophia
Was it
Paz, you are
Sophia?
the winner. Would
Yep,
you like a
Sophia got
mug or a $10 Starbucks gift card? Mug or water bottle? Let me know. All right, Mark, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up we have Sonia talking about providing authentic feedback.
I'm going to try and be pretty brief with this. I feel like when I was listening into somebody's session earlier, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Nick, was talking about feedback, but you want to be clear and concise, and you want them to feel like you're really engaging. That's kind of the theme of tonight, is providing feedback that is meaningful, not just copying and pasting. This was, you met all the criteria, but so that they feel like you've actually invested time in reading, thought about the information that you're giving them. There is kind of mixed research on whether or not the feedback sandwich is an effective approach. That's going to be, a personal choice, but the gist of that is that you preface it with a positive comment, you put your constructive, criticism in there, and that you close it so that they also feel like, you're not just leaving them with a negative. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with radical candor. I've seen a lot more research about that in the higher ed realm that's kind of come from the corporate. But when I do share this, we share this out, there'll be some more links on there. I was going to show you some pieces in Brightspace on where to put feedback. I think what we're going to do is just make sure that we have the Brightspace trainings that are related to feedback in the follow-up that we have for this evening, instead of going over it, because I'm sure it's a review for some of you, for some of the newer ones, like Anita, I don't even know if we glossed over that, but we will have a follow-up. So if you do have any questions though, as you're getting your courses ready, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on our team. Want to be mindful of your time because I know it's getting pretty late, but if you have any questions, we have a few more minutes. If you're gonna pop up right now and in the chat, or
there is a question.
Okay.
Someone provides individual feedback within the rubrics for papers as they are graded, just making sure that students can actually see this.
That's kind of what I wanted to, I forgot to share.
You can bail out of that slideshow if you'd like.
Just escape. Because a lot of times students will just go and look at where their grade is. Some feedback can be seen there, but more often than not, it's better for them to go back to the tool, like to either to the discussion board where the activity was, or the assignment where the activity was, so they can directly see where that feedback is. Oops.
So I think in exchange for our polling and breakout group, I think we'll go ahead and let Sonia go ahead with this, because I think this is a key piece that I get from our full-time faculty as well, is where is that feedback and how do our students get to that? So I'll get out of the way and let Sonia take you through it.
While Sonia's pulling that up, Melissa brought up a good point. She actually teaches the students where to look, and I think that's amazing. Being able to do that for your students and say, hey, I give feedback. It's not just for myself, it's for you to improve yourself, right? And so teaching them where to look for that is fantastic. Great idea.
So I'm going to show you real quick. If you go to your class list, well, not your class list, I'm so distracted, sorry. Go to your grades and pick a person out of your, and you can see what it is that they are seeing. So I did submit something on behalf of this person earlier today. So when they had clicked on their grades, this is what they would see. And I think there was only one area that I put feedback. So there's the individualized feedback, but then on the rubric itself, you can pop that out, so tiny. And then you can see where there's additional feedback, because I think I put a note here as well.
You can maximize it by if you hit that square.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into that course tool real quick, just to that one assignment. So you can, while you're in the grade book, if you're manually editing and putting a grade in there, you can do it there. But while you are grading, you can do it like I showed, where you're putting feedback directly into your rubric. And since we've talked about video, I think that is a pretty powerful one. If you would, like if, for example, if it were a paper and you pulled up the paper and you're like, scrolling over and talking about whatever it is, move this out of the way. Anywhere that you see the stuff link or record audio or video, you could personalize the video content there, or you could put your comments here. Sorry, I'm working with somebody else's device and it's a little bit awkward.
Sorry.
That's okay. So you can put your feedback here, or where I put that specific comment on a citation. Make that as big as I can. So as you're going through your rubric, you have the ability to put feedback under any specific criterion. So there's lots of areas that you could put your feedback to students.
But the students will all see that right in that area for preview.
Mm-hmm.
So they can go see all of the different feedback that you're providing. So one of two things, you can do the, like, I'm trying to think, who gave the feedback if they actually teach this in their class?
Melissa.
Great job. But also you can feel free to send them our way. So if they need some help in seeing feedback, don't feel like it all sits on your shoulders. You can certainly send them to anyone on my team and we can walk them through that process as well. So don't feel like you're out there on your own, I guess is what I'm saying throughout this entire presentation is we're here to help. So let us know what we can do to help you out in getting that message to your students.
I feel like just as much for you, we want to make sure that we are supporting students. Kind of both sides of the fence. We're going to help you with whatever resources you need with technology or the support in the classroom, but we also want to make sure that students are able to use the resources in Brightspace and actually get the most out of the product and their education.
Something along those lines as well that we offer is, as we showed you the survival guide for faculty, there's also a student survival guide and there's a student crash course that's an associated course in Brightspace for students to see. So they'll see a lot of the videos that are student related, both in the survival guide as well as the crash course.
So just like you're probably used to seeing all kinds of quick links and videos that we've put together for you all, I've put together all kinds of things about everything across the campus and more that students would want to have access to. And this is completely fluid. If you have anything you want me to add, I will go ahead and add it in here, but this is just the kind of things that are in here right now. There's a link to the survival guide that he was just describing. It's very similar to what your survival guide looks like, but obviously it's tailored to students and the things that they would need to see.
With that in mind, we have one last thing, and that is that I think Dr. Craven has one more question for us with a prize. So we can't send you out the door
Is that
for a prize.
Is that my question or Dean?
That is
yours?
That's yours, Kendra.
Oh, I'm not prepared for that one. I said no, I had that one.
Okay, I can do it. Here we go.
Okay, good.
We have 6 student learning outcomes related to being an educated citizen. One of our student learning outcomes relates to being a change agent called civic engagement. We have programs at the college that promote health policy, courses that engage students in advocacy and learning to understand these structures in the face of health inequities. This question, the last one of the night to wrap this up, is from the American Game Show program, Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? Here's the question. I'm going to put it in the chat so it's fair for everybody. One last second. I'm going to load it up. Are you ready? Click, and here it comes. What is the total number of members of Congress? Go.
Oh man, Michael, that was really fast.
Keep going.
Go off every time you break out. So just turn the captions back on.
Well, folks, we're going to wrap this up because there is a right answer in that list. Nick Joslin, 535. There are 100 who serve in the U.S. Senate, 435 who serve in the House of Reps, and we encourage you to be in touch with them. Great job.
With that, then, thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry we went a little bit over, but hopefully it was worth your time to join in. And we certainly enjoyed having you. Hope you get a chance to put some of these engaging activities into your classes as well. Thanks, and have a great night.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
No, okay, we get the one last slide in there. Huh?
There you go.
Now I know what you're after.
That's all, folks.
Stop recording.
Yes.